your dreams.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another Genshin Impact video, and today I'm just going to be talking about Furina buffs. I was originally going to talk about Charlotte, her artifacts and weapons, but these Furina buffs are pretty big. By the way, if you happen to like the video, just leave a like and subscribe. These Furina buffs are pretty big. There are people molding over these buffs. However, that is for a different reason that I will later explain in the video. The first Furina buff I'm going to explain is her elemental skill buff. The HP drain on her elemental skill now drains more HP for her allies, thus the elemental skill will now deal more damage, since the elemental skill will deal more damage depending on how much HP it has drained from your party members. Since Furina's HP drain is a lot bigger, there are certain team comps where Jean might actually be better than Kazuha, since Jean does have a party-wide heal and Kazuha does not. I do think having party-wide heals is going to be relatively important for Furina, since she's going to be draining a lot of HP from your allies. This elemental skill buff is only really good on her Osaya state. Her Numa state hasn't really been buffed, and if anything, her Numa state is kind of useless. There's really no real reason to use it, mostly because the damage of her elemental skill is just so big. Why would you rather go to her Numa state when you can just use her Osaya state for damage? Maybe next week they will buff her Numa state, but who knows. They also buffed Furina's elemental burst. The energy cost for elemental burst has been reduced to 70 to now 60. So if you are having ER issues for Furina, you will most likely not, since her burst is only 60 now. Instead of focusing on ER substats, you can focus on other substats like attack or HP. The cooldown of her elemental burst has also been reduced. It went from 18 seconds to 15 seconds, which makes sense since her elemental burst cost is reduced. So reducing the cooldown also makes sense. This next change on her burst is pretty interesting because the max amount of fanfare points that Furina get has now been reduced to 450 to 300. This change is a nerf to Lewdlad comps, because before this initial change, Lewdlad was the only character that can reach a max of 450 fanfare points, because Lewdlad's kit basically increases and decreases his HP pretty constantly. He was the only character that can reach a max of 450. However, now that the max is now 300, basically any team comp can reach 300. This is a nerf to Lewdlad comps. However, who the fuck really cares, because Lewdlad's banner is flopping, nobody has the man. But overall, a buff to universal comps, so you don't have to worry about pulling for Lewdlad. Also, Furina's fanfare to damage conversion has been increased, so that means more damage buff to your allies. Next change that they made with Furina is with her constellations, and this is where some of the molding begins. They basically swapped her C2 with her C6, so now her C6 is her C2, and her C2 is now her C6. Some people were molding over this because they wanted to roll for her C2 in order to make her an on-field character, but since now her C2 is now her C6, if you want Furina to be on the field, you have to have her C6, or in this case use Candace. I do think this constellation change is pretty good for light spenders, because now her C2 is basically giving a buff to her fanfare points. She basically gets more fanfare points a little bit more quickly, and if she reaches a max of 300 or more, she gets an increase on her HP, thus an increase in her elemental skill damage and her elemental burst damage, since they both scale off of HP. So with like most other characters, her C2 is actually pretty fucking good. Before, her C2 was kind of just, you know, whatever, right? She's an on-fielder, but her C2 is just even better because of the fanfare points buff. I do think her C2 is actually worth pulling for now. Overall, I think Hoyoverse did a pretty good job with these buffs. They fixed her ER issues. They fixed Lewdlad being the best character in her comps, and her elemental skill deals even more damage. They made her C2 even better. I think Furina is going to be a pretty top tier character, if I do say so myself. Whether she's a real Archon or not in lore, I do think they're following the pattern of, you know, the nation's Archon being one of the best characters in the game. I do think Furina is going to be the best Hydro in the game. Before Furina, it was Yelan, and before Yelan, it was Xingqiu. But I think Furina is, yeah, she's definitely going to be a top tier Hydro character. It's funny to see people molding over Furina's kit, whether it's because of the Constellation swap, or because she's replacing Xingqiu, or because people pulled for Lewdlad because he was the only character that could reach a max of 450 stacks. I'm ready to bring out my popcorn. Overall, I'm very happy that Furina is going to be a very great character, because the last time we got a female limited character was Nahida, and that was a year ago. Keep in mind, I said limited. I did not forget about Dea. Dea was technically the last female character, but she's not limited. She's standard. And since Dea was standard, basically Nahida was the last limited female. Hoyoverse deadass went a whole year without releasing a new female limited character. Furina's really great right now, and she might receive even more buffs in the future. Next week, I can kind of see them buffing her Numa state, since her Numa state is kind of useless. Her Osiris stance is a lot better since it basically, buffs your party members since it decreases your party's HP. There's really no real reason to use her Numa stance, and I mean, I don't really see a reason to use it. Anyways, that's gonna be the end of this video. Let me know what you guys think about these Furina buff changes. Do you like them, hate them, Malden over them? Are you still gonna be pulling for Furina? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.
Bye bye now. Come again soon.